Life has a way of revealing our true character in the most unexpected moments. Picture this. Downtown Los Angeles. A sea of faces rushing past, each lost in their own world. But among them, a scene unfolds that would touch even the hardest of hearts. A woman kneels on the cold pavement, tears streaming down her face. Her dog, her best friend of 8 years, needs urgent surgery. The cost? $5,000 she simply doesn't have. Most people walk by, avoiding eye contact until Joe Rogan, the man known for his raw honesty and unfiltered opinions, stops dead in his tracks. The woman doesn't even recognize him at first, too consumed by her desperation. But what happens next leaves everyone speechless. Instead of offering a few dollars or empty words of comfort, Rogan kneels beside her. "Tell me about your dog," he says, his voice carrying that same intensity his millions of listeners know so well. The story that follows would change not just one life, but countless others in ways no one could have predicted. Sarah Martinez, the woman on her knees, had always been a fighter, a retired nurse who dedicated 30 years of her life to helping others at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. She now found herself in the unfamiliar position of asking for help. Her hands trembled as she pulled out her phone, showing Rogan a photo of Max, her 8-year-old German Shepherd mix, now lying in an emergency veterinary clinic, his usually bright eyes dulled by pain, yet still maintaining that gentle soul that had captured her heart years ago. "He collapsed this morning," she explains, her voice breaking. "The doctors found a tumor pressing against his heart. They say without surgery." She can't finish the sentence, but she doesn't need to. The weight of what's left unsaid hangs heavy in the air between them. The morning had started like any other, their usual walk through Echo Park, Max's tail wagging as he greeted his regular dog friends. Then, suddenly he stumbled, his strong legs giving way beneath him. The memory of his whimper, so uncharacteristic of her brave companion, still echoes in her mind. The busy street continues its usual symphony of honking horns and hurried footsteps. But around Sarah and Joe, a small crowd begins to gather. They're drawn not just by the recognition of a celebrity, but by the raw humanity of the moment unfolding before them. A young mother holds her child's hand tighter, seeing her own beloved family pet in Max's story. A businessman in an expensive suit discreetly wipes his eyes, remembering the dog that saw him through college years ago. Rogan listens intently as Sarah shares how Max came into her life. It was 3 years ago, shortly after her husband David's sudden passing from an undiagnosed heart condition. The grief had been overwhelming, leaving her trapped in a darkness that seemed endless. Their home, once filled with David's booming laugh and the sounds of their shared life, had become unbearably quiet. She'd taken to working extra shifts at the hospital, trying to outrun the silence, until her colleagues staged an intervention. "My friend Maria, she's a social worker," Sarah explains, her voice steadying as she recalls the memory. "She suggested I visit the shelter, not to adopt, just to spend time with the animals. She said it might help." A hint of a smile crosses her face. "I fought her on it, told her I wasn't ready, but she wouldn't take no for an answer. That's when I met Max." At the mention of the shelter visit, Rogan's eyes soften. Anyone who's listened to his podcast knows his views on animal shelters, on the profound impact these organizations have on both human and animal lives. Sarah continues, describing how Max, already a 5-year-old dog with graying whiskers, chose her. "He just walked right up to me," Sarah recalls, a hint of a smile breaking through her tears. "Pressed his head against my leg and wouldn't leave my side. The shelter workers couldn't believe it. They said he'd never done that with anyone else. He'd been there for months, passed over because of his age, because he wasn't as energetic as the younger dogs. But in that moment," she pauses, touching the silver locket around her neck that, Rogan would later learn, contains a photo of David. "In that moment, it was like he knew exactly what I needed." The connection was instant and profound. Max, who had his own history of loss and resilience, seemed to understand Sarah's grief in a way no human could. He would lie beside her on difficult nights when memories of David felt overwhelming, his steady presence a reminder that she wasn't alone. During their morning walks, He would gently guide her to stop and notice the sunrise, something she and David used to do together. "He saved my life," Sarah says simply, and the truth of those words resonates in the gathering crowd. "And now I can't save his." That's when something shifts in Rogan's expression. Those who know him from his podcast would recognize it, the look he gets when something strikes a deeper chord, when the usual barriers between public persona and private emotion begin to blur, is the same look he had during his famous interviews with veterans discussing PTSD. When the raw truth of human experience cuts through all pretense, he pulls out his phone, but not for the usual social media moment many might expect. Instead, he opens his podcast app and starts recording. "I'm here on Sunset Boulevard," he begins, his voice carrying that familiar mix of intensity and authenticity that millions have come to trust. "And I'm about to tell you a story that's going to remind all of us what really matters." Right there on that busy street corner, Joe Rogan begins to broadcast live to his millions of followers. The late afternoon sun casts long shadows across the pavement as he speaks, his voice carrying the weight of genuine emotion that no script could replicate. This isn't just another podcast episode. It's a call to action that would ripple through the digital world with unprecedented speed. "Listen," he says into his phone, his eyes fixed on the photo of Max on Sarah's screen. "I'm looking at a photo of Max right now. This dog." He pauses, collecting his thoughts, and in that moment of silence, even the street seems to hold its breath. You know, we talk a lot on the podcast about loyalty, about unconditional love, about what it means to be truly human. Well, sometimes it takes a dog to teach us those lessons. As he speaks, sharing Sarah's story with the raw honesty he's known for, something extraordinary begins to happen. The comments section of the live stream explodes with activity. People from all walks of life, from different corners of the world, begin to tune in. A truck driver in Texas pulls over to listen. A night shift worker in London stays awake past dawn. A college student in Tokyo shares the stream with her entire dormitory. Donations start pouring in, first in small amounts, then larger ones. $5 from a high school student who walks dogs after school. 50 from a retired veteran who credits his own service dog with helping him overcome PTSD. 500 from a successful entrepreneur who adopted her first rescue dog the day her company turned a profit. The numbers keep climbing, each donation carrying its own story of human-animal connection. "I'm matching every donation up to $10,000, Rogan announces, his voice firm with conviction. And before anyone asks, no, this isn't about publicity. This isn't about getting attention. This is about doing what's right when the universe puts you in a position to help. He looks at Sarah, who's watching the numbers climb with disbelief written across her face. This is about recognizing that sometimes the most important things in life can't be measured in dollars and cents, but in the beats of a heart, whether human or canine. The crowd around them has grown larger now, with people holding up their phones, sharing the moment on their own social media. But unlike the usual celebrity encounters, there's something different about this one. There's a palpable sense of connection, of shared purpose. A woman in scrubs, just finishing her shift at the nearby hospital, shares her own story of how her therapy dog helps children facing cancer treatments. An elderly man speaks softly about the dog that gave him a reason to live after losing his wife of 50 years. Local business owners step out of their shops, drawn by the commotion. Jessica Chin, owner of the Golden Lotus Cafe, brings Sarah a hot tea and a warm smile. "My grandfather always said that kindness to animals shows the true nature of a person," she says in Mandarin, while her teenage son translates. A young artist named Marcus, who had been sketching in the park, begins drawing Max from the photo on Sarah's phone. His skilled hands capture not just the physical features, but somehow manage to convey the soul in those loyal eyes. The same spirit that had given Sarah a reason to keep going after David's death. As the donations continue to flow in, Rogan shares his own experiences with dogs, speaking with a vulnerability that his regular listeners rarely hear. He talks about his childhood dog, Buddy, who saw him through his parents' divorce, about the lessons in loyalty and resilience he learned from that relationship, about the way animals can sense our pain, our joy, our fears, and love us through all of it. These animals, he says, his voice thick with emotion. They don't judge us by our bank accounts or our social media following. They don't care if we got that promotion or if we're struggling to make rent. They love us completely, unconditionally. And sometimes, they save us in ways we never expected. The numbers on the screen keep climbing. $15,000, $20,000, $25,000. But what's happening goes beyond mere financial support. Messages flood in from around the world. Stories of other pet owners who faced similar situations, of communities coming together, of the profound impact animals have on their lives. A woman in Australia shares how her dog alerted her to an intruder, saving her life. A family in Canada tells of their elderly dog who helped their autistic son connect with the world. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a veterinarian watching the live stream from her clinic just blocks away, calls in to offer her services at a reduced rate. "What you're doing here," she tells Rogan on the live feed, "it's not just about one dog. It's about showing people that compassion still exists in this world." She goes on to share statistics about the number of pets surrendered due to medical costs, her voice breaking as she describes the impossible choices many owners face. Pet supply companies begin reaching out, promising to cover Max's post-surgery care needs. Paw Perfect, a national chain, pledges a year's worth of food and supplies. Their CEO, Amanda Chun, joins the live stream to share her own story of rescue dogs. "When I was building this company for my garage 15 years ago," she reveals, her voice catching slightly, "my rescue pit bull would stay up with me through those endless nights of packing orders. She believed in me when nobody else did. Today, we're a $100 million company, but I've never forgotten that loyalty." Safe Pet Insurance Company, moved by the story, goes even further. Their board of directors convenes an emergency meeting right there, during the live stream. Within 30 minutes, they announce the creation of a new program for low-income pet owners, inspired by Sarah's situation. They name it the Max Plan, promising affordable coverage options for senior pets. "We've been looking for ways to serve this community better," their chief operations officer explains during a surprise call-in. "Sometimes you just need a catalyst to turn good intentions into action." The impact ripples through the pet care industry. Other insurance companies begin reviewing their policies on pre-existing conditions. Veterinary supply companies start reaching out to clinics nationwide, offering subsidized equipment for practices that provide low-income services. A major pharmaceutical company announces they'll expand their medication assistance program to include veterinary medicines. But perhaps most touching are the small businesses joining in. A local pet groomer offers free services for shelter dogs, hoping to make them more adaptable. A nearby pet bakery pledges to donate proceeds from their weekend sales to emergency vet care for seniors on fixed incomes. Even a children's book illustrator watching the stream begins sketching concepts for a book about Max's story, with proceeds promised to animal welfare organizations. Sarah watches all this unfold with a kind of stunned disbelief. Just an hour ago, she had been drowning in despair, seeing no way to save her beloved companion. Now, thanks to one person's decision to stop and listen, her world has been transformed. The live stream has raised over $50,000 in just under an hour, but the impact reaches far beyond the monetary support. After ending the broadcast, Rogan doesn't immediately leave. Instead, he sits with Sarah on a nearby bench, the cameras off, the crowd dispersing. In this quieter moment, she shares more about her life with David, about the lonely nights when Max's presence was the only thing keeping her going, about the small rituals they've developed, how Max knows to bring her his leash when she's been sitting too long with old photo albums, how he sleeps on David's side of the bed, how his morning kisses always land on her right cheek, just like David's used to. "You know," Rogan tells her, his voice quieter now, meant just for her, "what you and Max have, that's the real deal. That's the kind of love we all hope to find in this world." He shares his own experiences with grief, with the healing power of animal companionship, with the importance of community in times of crisis. Before leaving, he gives her his personal number, making her promise to keep him updated on Max's progress. "This isn't the end of the story," he insists. "This is just the beginning." The surgery, scheduled for first thing the next morning, brings its own wave of community support. Throughout the night, people gather in small groups outside the veterinary clinic, holding a candlelight vigil for Max. Dr. Rodriguez, touched by this display of solidarity, provides hourly updates to the growing crowd. Inside, her team works with precision and care, their usual professional detachment softened by the knowledge of what this one dog means to so many. The procedure itself becomes a masterclass in veterinary medicine. Dr. Rodriguez discovers that the tumor, while dangerous, hasn't spread as feared. She broadcasts educational segments during breaks in the surgery, explaining the procedure to thousands of viewers worldwide. Medical students tune in from as far away as Sydney and London, watching a routine operation transform into a powerful lesson about the intersection of medicine and compassion. Max's recovery becomes a symbol of hope for thousands who follow the story online. Each small victory, the first tail wag post-surgery, the first tentative steps in the clinic's garden, the moment he recognizes Sarah's voice and lifts his head with that special doggy smile, is shared and celebrated by an ever-growing community. Sarah starts a blog, initially just to keep supporters updated on Max's progress, but it quickly evolves into something more meaningful. The blog, titled Max's Second Chance, becomes a gathering place for pet owners facing similar crises. Sarah's nursing background proves invaluable as she translates complex medical information into accessible language, helping others understand and advocate for their pet's care. She shares not just Max's recovery milestones, but also practical advice about navigating pet insurance, finding affordable care options, and maintaining hope through difficult times. Veterinary professionals begin contributing guest posts, offering expert insights and advice. A pet grief counselor provides resources for those facing difficult decisions. Even Max seems to sense his role in this growing movement, showing remarkable patience as Sarah photographs his recovery journey, his gentle eyes somehow conveying understanding and encouragement to others facing similar challenges. The excess funds raised that day become the seed money for the Max Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to helping low-income pet owners afford emergency veterinary care. Sarah, with her background in nursing and her first-hand experience with the power of community support, becomes its first director. The foundation partners with veterinary clinics across the country, creating a network of support for people and their animal companions. Joe Rogan, true to his word, stays connected. He features the foundation on his podcast several times, using his platform to highlight the often overlooked crisis of pet owners forced to make impossible choices due to financial constraints. Each appearance brings new waves of support and awareness, expanding the foundation's reach and impact. 1 year later, Sarah and Max return to that same street corner, but not alone. They're joined by dozens of other pet owners and their rescued companions, all beneficiaries of the foundation that began with one moment of compassion. Joe Rogan is there too, not as a celebrity, but as a friend, watching as Max, now fully recovered, plays with other dogs in a nearby park. The transformation goes beyond just Sarah and Max. The incident sparks a larger conversation about community, about the bonds we share with our animal companions, and about the power of collective action. Local businesses near that fateful street corner begin keeping pet food and supplies on hand for animals in need. Dr. Rodriguez's clinic starts a monthly free clinic for low-income pet owners, inspiring similar initiatives across the city. Today, if you walk down that same street in Los Angeles, you might notice something different. There's a small plaque embedded in the sidewalk where Sarah first knelt in desperation. It reads simply, "Where hope begins." And every day, people stop to read it, some knowing the story behind it, others simply feeling its truth. Sarah still walks that route with Max every morning, their daily ritual now infused with new meaning. And sometimes, when she sees someone else in need, whether human or animal, she stops, remembering how one person's decision to pause and show compassion changed not just her life, but countless others. The story of Joe Rogan, Sarah, and Max becomes more than just a viral moment or a heartwarming tale. It becomes a testament to the enduring power of connection in an often disconnected world, a reminder that even in our darkest moments, hope can find us in the most unexpected ways. And sometimes, it takes a dog, a stranger's kindness, and a community's love to show us that we're never truly alone.